We're just going to brief this. We're starting the recording now. This is a discipline committee dated February 12th, 2025. We've approved amended minutes, and I've briefly laid out some of the hard work that the committee did to prepare this very extensive report and the 15 authorities and reviewing all that information in preparing that report. The report does a few things. Number one, it sets forth the relevant facts. And what we did for that is go back to the YouTube video and transcribe some of the relevant facts and then talk to some of the parties about their feelings about what happened. Number two, it clarifies the role of the district manager and what the obligations are in their relationship to the community board. And number three, it clarifies the applicable bylaws. And quite frankly, this was the most difficult part of drafting this memo and agreeing upon this memo, because, for instance, we have bylaws of Community Board 12 dated May 30th, 2021 on the website, and according to minutes of our ad hoc bylaws committee and general board meeting, that's no longer the effective bylaws that represent Community Board 12 in the Bronx. So I believe, if our research is correct, the bylaws of Community Board 12 should be dated April 22nd, 2022. And that's important because the amendment to the bylaws that happened in April of 2022 include a code of conduct. And it's a code of conduct for board members and staff members. I'm not going to read the entire report. I do have a 200-page version of it that I'm going to give to Ursula, and that includes the 7-page report and 100-something pages or 200 pages of authorities. So she's going to have that scanned and available for anybody that needs it. I'll go to the final page, which is the recommendations, but I recommend that you take a look at the whole report, because, again, the purpose of this report is to ensure that we're all on the same page and we understand what the applicable rules are. My view is that there would be a lot more cooperation and less issues as far as communication and efficient running of the board if we were all on the same page about what the applicable rules are. So that was certainly a major concern with this report. So recommendations, reading off page 7, it says, after careful consideration of the relevant facts and authority, the discipline committee recommends the following. 1, District Manager Torres should take reasonable good faith measures to avoid future incidents which may distract from the core mission of the community board and the district manager's statutory role to provide, quote, staff support and technical assistance. Number 2, District Manager Torres shall review pages 51 through 54 of the 2015 Handbook for Community Board Members, which outlines the, quote, responsibilities of a district manager, relationships with a community board, office environment, and relationship with the district service cabinet. District Manager Torres shall also review the April 2022 version of the bylaws, specifically the Article 11 Code of Conduct, as well as Section 2800F of the New York City Charter. Review of these items shall constitute a training opportunity designed to ameliorate the lack of professional decorum at board meetings. Mr. Torres shall receive a copy of the aforementioned authorities within 5 days approval of this report by the discipline committee. And I do have those authorities connected to the report here today. Unless the committee receives correspondence from the district manager Torres within 5 business days stating otherwise, it shall be assumed that he was given sufficient opportunity and, in fact, complied with the committee's recommendations herein. Number 3, District Manager Torres shall ensure that the April 22 version of the bylaws, which was overwhelmingly approved at a full meeting of the board, is made publicly available on the Community Board 12 website within 5 business days. And finally, the committee hereby determines that board member and treasurer Talene Dickerson has presented extraordinary circumstances which permit her attendance at all future community board meetings by video conference without additional inquiry. In addition, in accordance with the resolution of Community Board 12, which was made effective June 14th, 2022. And then it goes on to say, in the committee's view, the allegations do not warrant a formal admonishment at this time. However, should such conduct persist, a majority of the full board, acting in accordance with legitimate, non-discriminatory reasons, may successfully carry a motion for appropriate discipline at a subsequent scheduled general meeting of the board. And that's citing a Supreme Court Kings County case and the New York City Charter, Section 2801B. This constitutes the full decision of the discipline committee. Any comments from anyone on the committee, any members of the committee about the report?
No.
Okay. Being no comments from the committee, anyone in person have a comment? Go ahead, Ursula.
I got a question. Let me see that for a second. Over here, it says complaint received from Mr. Luke Salvador. What complaint was that?
So all of the items that were received by the committee is detailed in this complaint. I believe the Luke Zabados complaint.
You want me to read for the whole weekend, don't you?
If you had any idea how long this took to put together, I'm telling you, you'd be.
I was trying to get it together.
I understand. Sure.
The letter that went out to everybody regarding something that happened with George, I stand by what I said earlier. This is a personnel issue. And I don't feel like it should have been broadcast. I think we should have went into executive, and certain people have this letter that I don't think they should have it. That letter should have never went out. Most people wasn't.
You mean what you're referring to is the letter from like 7 years ago?
Yes.
Now I didn't make that letter. We didn't make the letter part of this. But yeah, I understand.
Should have never shared that letter. That was wrong. They weren't here when that went down. I was here when that went down. I know what went down. I know what was supposed to have been done. That letter should have never been, I want to be on the record saying that letter should have never been shared.
Thank you, Ursula. Anybody else in the room?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, obviously, you know that we got a letter and we saw it, and I understand the concerns that George had and some concerns that Ursula about it getting out. And I understand why you would not move it out. And Bobby was very careful in doing this decision that it was not made a part of his decision or even considered. But it's tough to ignore once you have read it. And it's tough to ignore what the allegations were and what.
But
Let me start. It's tough. I'm not saying what we try to be fair here, so that's why we did not include it in a part of it. I'm simply saying that the allegations made and the nature and the tone of the letter. I was not here. I don't know what.
that's what
Go ahead. Ursula, wait to be recognized. Ursula, wait to be recognized.
Context of what?
I'm saying.
That's what that should have never.
And I'm not
But I'm angry right now.
No, and I'm saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of that. I'm not, and that's why it's not reflected.
Right, but
Right?
that's.
Okay, but we can't go back now, or it's already out. I mean.
I don't want it to be shared in the future because nobody knows what went down that night. George took one for the team that night. But nobody knows that because they wasn't here and they walk behind the doors with these conversations. That letter should have never been shared with anybody. And I don't like it, and I think that it violated trust, and it has to be on the point where I'm ready to resign right here today. That's how I feel.
No, I understand what you're saying. That's why not complain.
Because you know what, somebody's gonna do something in the future. I'm sorry, but somebody's gonna.
What's going on?
I can keep that this letter's gonna come back again, and whoever has the letter should destroy the letter and should stop sharing it. That's what I'm saying.
Clear the clock so we can see.
What does that mean? Clear the clock.
Oh, take it, I'll do it.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm covering John. Yeah.
You want to
I don't think it's.
I'm not very technically. Okay, all right, George wants to be recognized. George, go ahead.
So, thank you. So like I said, I sent the thing to the committee members, sort of a recollection. Look, I'll do what's, I guess what's recommended. It's not as though I have a choice. And I really didn't put up a defense. The only thing that I'll say in that regard is that, and that's what I think I expressed in my sort of timeline, not my version of events, but the timeline that was presented to me. I abided by the rules set forth by the discipline committee. And that was, we had a meeting November 11th, if I'm not mistaken. And you gave me until, I think it was December 10th, to make a response. You presented options, which I took the liberty of choosing one of the options. And then we had a meeting on December 17th where we basically took testimony. And I was, quite frankly, my assumption was that we would have the determination based on what I had chosen, which was. So I was not prepared to offer a defense. Here we are, we're writing a report. And let me just, to speak to Ursula's issue. I mean, this has all been very public. I've had to endure, comments, not just from people who don't know what's going on YouTube, but even from board members. And I do have a problem. Well, let me address that. Let me finish that point. The problem is, I am a New York City employee. Just like any employee that works for any employer would not expect that a discipline meeting would happen in a public forum. I'm not saying that you can't have the vote as part of the discipline committee, but the discipline committee should have gone into executive session. And then when they had the vote or whatever the recommendations were, that you come out of executive session, you have the vote and stuff like that. That is clear as day, but again, we chose to forego that. And I think that that's one of my concerns, because now, because we've had this public thing, I've written my thing, what Ursula referred to just now. We got a complaint that's not referenced here. You say that it wasn't done in a timely manner. And I think it sets a dangerous precedent. I know that I serve at the will of the community board. I've never questioned that. But the idea, how do I say this? Because again, I don't want to be offensive. It is not a situation, you say you're given, I feel like you've given more credence to Ms. Borsati's complaint that I didn't comply in a timely manner, even though I addressed that during the meeting. That I'll try and use the language again. I just got this now, so. I'm sorry, just reading it. So it's something to the effect of that I'm not responding. Oh, sufficiently alleged.
What page are you referring
The
to?
second to last page.
Second to last page?
Yeah, the second to last paragraph. Moreover, Ms. Borsati's complaint sufficiently alleges the violation of district manager's responsibilities under the New York City Charter Given every favorable inference, the complainant alleges that Mr. Torres failed to serve with the pleasure of the community board by failing to provide certain technical assistance and perform duties assigned to the board. I'd like to know what the definition of those technical assistance, as I stated, and as in this thing now.
I think, just to answer your question, I think you're misinterpreting the report. That the section that you're reading from is addressing the motion to dismiss that you referred to on November 21st, 2024. And that paragraph is saying that, you said that this doesn't even color a violation in which the discipline committee can even entertain. So we looked at that question, and our determination was giving every favorable inference to Carla Bersati and the allegations that she made. We think that the allegations are sufficient to warrant the consideration of the discipline committee. So that's where we address that. The next page is where we make with the recommendations is where we say in the committee's view, the allegations do not warrant a formal admonishment, and then make a series of recommendations as to training and trying to ameliorate these communications failures between the board. I think you're misinterpreting that. And I also, just to address a couple things you said, with respect to the executive session issue, I think you're completely wrong. I think it's very clear that we have to meet open and publicly, and then we can make a motion to go into executive session. I think we cited the authority, we took a vote, and if you don't agree with it, I've explained this issue, I think, as much as can be explained. We thought about it and we explained our reasoning at the hearing, and I don't know that there's any other reason to continue going into that. And then as far as the opportunity to provide testimony after the hearing on December 17th, we gave another day for the parties to actually submit responsive testimony. And instead of getting responsive testimony from you on or before the January 10th date, we got it today, a couple hours before the hearing. So I do think there was ample opportunity to provide a defense, both at two hearings, and opportunity before January 10th to submit written materials, and it came today. I think this report should give us an opportunity to study what the applicable rules are and avoid these kinds of issues in the future.
Well,
go ahead.
I'll just finish, but
sorry.
I think it's okay. The issue that Ursula raised and the issue that Wayne Palmer spoke to about prejudicing, that letter is now, again, I don't know how widely shared it was with board members. I don't even know if non-board members have it. The board member, my understanding, and the only reason I know this is because you sent me the email that had the complaints.
It was me?
I'm sorry? Yeah, you.
Bobby.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Robert
Yeah.
sent an email where the attachment was listed. And I'm just curious because she should not have had a copy of that. That was not something that ever went to the community board for a vote or for exec. There were 5 people in that meeting. Carla was not one of it. There were only 2 members on this board that were in that meeting that are still here. The remainder of those community board members are no longer on the board. That is our former chair, William Paul, our former treasurer, Hillary Bloomfeld. The only 2 board members that are still here that from that meeting inside the chairman's office right over there is John Isaac and Carl Stricker. So I do want to focus on the comment that Wayne just made, which is, I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer just made, which is that it was prejudicial. It went out and it influenced people's decisions. So, again, I've said my piece. I will be at peace. I will abide by all of these things, but I'll leave it there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't even want to dabble in that. But I think that my point, like I said, this is not necessarily my response. This was an exercise for me to sort of sort all of this out and try to make sense of it, because I did not have faith, because again, when you make an allegation, you have to make a formal request. That standard has not been met. The idea that you're saying that I'm misinterpreting it, and I guess that's, that's your interpretation, but the idea that I didn't meet the standard, I would like to know what the standard is. Ms. Prasadi is alleging that I did not respond within a week when she sent an email saying, thank you for scheduling the meeting. The only thing that we had back and forth was not the scheduling of the meeting, it was, why is the committee even meeting? And that was the discussion. So that's why I'm saying I requested what was required of me, and we blew past that. And that was your interpretation as the chair of the committee, that it was okay to do that and you, as you stated, what was it? They just did this for the mayor. It's without prejudice. That yeah.
No,
Go ahead, Wayne.
when I read the allegations made by Ms. Borsetti, it was more or less that she said there was an ad hoc committee that was there, and you're saying that it doesn't exist. And there's an argument between the two of you as to whether it existed or not. And she was insisting that, yes, it wasn't disbanded, it was still there, and we had to have meetings and yada, 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 yada. And your position was that, no, it doesn't. Now, I'm not going, and at some point, I guess what you guys came to a meeting in the mind that it did still exist. It wasn't a committee that did not exist. At some point, I'm not quite.
No. So I don't want to put people on the spot. Bobby and I were having a conversation before this. I'm not going to refer to the conversation, but I think the recommendation that, communication has to be better is valid. I was responding to Carla's emails, but those emails were not necessarily, or she was copied on those emails. Those emails were sent to our chair, Beatrice Cornell. My understanding of the complaints that I was defending myself against, which I'm now, was that I had discriminated what was the word, Ursula? Healthism? Was healthism and ageism and that's why I went to the meeting in November thinking that that's what I'm trying to defend myself, and that's why I chose the options that I did.
But where do you get that from, ageism? Where did that come from?
Yes.
I keep saying.
From Beatrice, the chair. She stated it in the meeting that we had.
Oh,
Ursula and I had a meeting.
I would like the floor to speak when George is done.
Hold on, let George finish his thought. Go ahead, George.
I had a meeting on October 17th. Hold on, I even have the email. I received an email from Beatrice on October 11th asking for a sit down to address and discuss incident that took place at the Ad hoc Bylaws Committee on 9/16. I responded on Saturday, October 12th. She wrote back Tuesday, October 15th, saying that we were scheduled for October 17th. At that meeting, which was virtual, I asked Ursula to attend. She attended, and these are the allegations that I was told that I was in violation of.
Go ahead, Beatrice, you're recognized.
That conversation was a private conversation that I had with George as his supervisor, which I am, as a supervisor, able to give him warning, to let him know if things are inappropriate, if there's things he needs to be more mindful of. And that's what that conversation was. That the way his delivery can be interpreted as certain isms, and that he needs to be very careful how he speaks to people in general. In that same conversation, I was like, George, I don't even want to be here. This confrontation, that's not, I don't connect well with that. his response was like, well, then maybe you should step down. So again, this conversation was me calling him as his supervisor to warn him that the way your approach or delivery that day, that incident was inappropriate, and you have to be careful with how it can be interpreted.
Okay.
Hold on. We need to, that needs to be parsed out.
Well,
we have.
That's a false statement.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Can we just give a second? Because the thing about what's gonna happen now is that everybody's going to make a statement and then another person wants to respond. But, no. What I'm saying is that we wanna be able to hear everybody, but at the same time, we also wanna stick to like what was said and just have clarity, because at the end of the day, everything was weighed in the reports. So we want to make sure that at least at the end of this meeting that we can all be on a similar page.
Understood.
One more
Yeah.
last thing. We wanted to hear what you had to say, and we also want to hear what Beatrice
Yeah.
has to say.
Understood.
We're not trying to litigate what or not.
No, I understand that, but when we had the conversation, I think Beatrice will.
George is recognized. Go ahead, George.
Beatrice asked, and again, you're welcome to jump in. She asked if she could record the meeting, and I gave her permission to do so. So the idea that we were having a private discussion, I don't know what that would be if you're trying to record the meeting. She said she had trouble with her device and she couldn't record it. And I don't know if the recording exists or not. She stated that board members were complaining to her about what happened at the bylaws committee. And I said, well, what's the issue? And that's when she said, your health is amazing, whatever. I'm not questioning whether Beatrice is my supervisor or not. I'm not, never questioned that. I'm just saying, just to finish the point.
Yeah.
It was stated in this report that we have to figure out what the communication is.
Okay.
I will say that she is Beatrice is my supervisor. You guys are board members. You're all technically my supervisors. I don't have communication with Beatrice. Beatrice will call, for anything. Like I'll check now to see like when my last email from the chairman was or the chairperson, but like all of this wasn't about trying to figure out, oh, I'm talking to you about you. She said that I was being accused of ageism and healthism and that I was going to bring it to the discipline committee. And I said, go right ahead. Because I knew that I did not do anything wrong. And when you submitted those complaints, that's why I wrote, what am I in violation of? There's no formal complaint saying, George, this is what the complaint is. For example, oh, you showed age-related discrimination because this is what happened on XYZ date. I'm showing health discrimination because Ms. Tolene's health condition, and I'm being ignorant of that. And the only thing I will say, and with this report, I know I'm just adding, you state in point 4 that the committee hereby determines.
What page are you
last
from?
page, I'm sorry, the last page. I don't want to say I'm wonky. I take this job seriously. Committee hereby determines that board member and treasurer Tolene Dickinson as previously as presented, extraordinary circumstances which permit her attendance at all future community board meetings by video conference without additional inquiry in accordance with resolution, blah, 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 whatever. That's not up to you. That is up to Chapter 56 of the Committee on Open Government's guidance. And the requirement is and states that you have to call or email the staff and let them know that we're not participating in person, we're doing it virtually. It goes on to state, if you go into the Committee on Open Government, that if you're claiming a reasonable accommodation, which anybody can, you have to claim it. I've been here for 9 years. Tolene has been a board member all 9 years that I've been here. I don't have any record of Ms. Dickerson's request for reasonable accommodation. I know she had open heart surgery. We paid as a community board to send her gift baskets every time she went back to the hospital. So I'm very and fully aware of the condition that she is in. It doesn't excuse or the requirement that we have to follow. And I think that that is part of the problem that exists as a community board. We have a problem with quorum. We had a conversation about it. And one of the suggestions that we might do away with hybrid because people do not show up. And we continue to suffer from that problem, and nobody is addressing that issue.
Can I just address a few things? With respect to recommendation 4, as you said, you're fully aware of Tolene's condition. She's presented as extraordinary circumstances. You're aware of the extraordinary circumstances. Our recommendation as a committee is that my computer is snooze.
Yeah.
Our recommendation as a committee is that it's superfluous and ridiculous for her to be under the obligation to constantly remind you of a condition that you're fully aware in your own words that she has. It's unnecessary. We can all move on. And if the Office of Open Government disagrees, it's a respectful disagreement with our recommendation. With respect to, I think the report clarifies a lot of the issues that you raise, and hopefully you'll get an opportunity to sit down with it and review it in greater detail. And
take 2 weeks.
good. That's okay. That's okay. I wanted it to. We wanted it to be comprehensive.
You want me to send this to everybody?
Anyone who requests it, Beatrice and the other, because we spent a lot of time, and I know you're very concerned, George, with the correspondence between you and Beatrice. That's not part of this record. And anywhere in that 200 pages, that is not part of the record at all.
Thank you. I just want to make sure it's not, because again, that was a private conversation. The recording part I did.
It's not part of the record. It's not relevant to any of the findings.
But just to note, right, for your minutes.
Go ahead, Beatrice, you're recognized.
The part of the recording was once he said I should step off, because that's, I knew it was about to get confrontational, and that just wasn't where I needed it to go. And so that's what that came about, just
Thank
so
you,
that
Beatrice.
it's noted on the record.
Tulene wants to be recognized. Go ahead, Tulene. You've been patient.
One thing that's pretty interesting is the fact that all of this, well, not all of it. I wrote a letter, right? And what happened to me and how I felt was in that email. Okay, so I don't know about all the other stuff that happened. Everything specifically that happened to me was in that email. Not about, I didn't mention, going back to ageism, whatever that is. I was under the impression that this was concerning what happened to me, my complaint, and I guess the other complaint. Not anything that went on between Beatrice and George. Correct?
That is the understanding of the committee, and that is reflected in the report.
Okay.
The report had nothing to do with that conversation. It's not at any point included in the record.
Okay, so I want to be clear about that. The other part to that is, in terms of it being, I understand had this meeting, well, it wouldn't have mattered either way. I would have still wrote the letter if it was said in executive board or if it was in any other meeting. That meeting was public. That meeting is still public. It's still on YouTube. It's not executive session. It's not private. Okay, does everybody understand that?
Well, it's about the committee.
That it should be private. Ain't they?
Ursula, you're recognizing.
Green, I'm sorry.
Just make sure you're recognized before you talk. Go ahead, Ursula, you're recognized.
I've been here for 29 years. Anytime we've ever dealt with personnel issues, it was always in executive session. So that's what I was going on, why I said it should be an executive and not open because of my past experience here.
Okay,
That's why I said-
and just, I think you can go to the YouTube page for the December 17th meeting. And I think the committee discussed its rationale for why they went into, chose not to go into executive session.
Yeah.
Anyone online have anything they want to add before we proceed with a vote on the report?
Okay.
Nothing. Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt the report?
Motion to adopt the report.
Seconded, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No. The report carries. Any other business before the committee? Anyone online have any other items they want to raise before we leave?
I do have
Go ahead, George has an item. Go ahead, George.
So, because we received the complaint after the time frame, the December 6th complaint from Luke Savados, is this now revisit that? We are gonna have another?
Go ahead.
I don't understand the question, George. Go ahead.
Oh, there's bullet number 3 says, complaint received from Luke Savados dated December 6th, 2024.
The complaint, as it's discussed in the report, was in support of Talene and Carla's complaint. And it's addressed within the report. And it's part of the record and it was shared with the parties. And it was before the deadline that was set by the committee. Anyone else have anything to add? Then I hereby adjourn the meeting at 7:51.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you tomorrow for committee 3.
This is, hold on. This is, George's, something.
Yeah, I'll leave it.
Oh.
What is, what minutes?
That's what I was saying. That's what we were talking about. Before you got here, I was talking to George about that. I'm like, we have executive committee meetings and bylaw committee meetings and all these things.
Yeah. This is stuff.
Because you were there. Today, I'm.
I know. It says,
Don't worry.
Is it like against the rules to get like an app, like full transfer?
Sorry, I'm doing it. Good.
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, you don't.
Coming in.
Well, you know what made me, because the other day,
But I think about it, it's like corporate stuff.
Yeah, no.
So that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah,
I couldn't see it, I couldn't see.
No. You don't have.
Somebody was saying,
They
I
don't have
don't
to
really
be-
care.
Can I wait, like, give it time for this? Can I wait till this goes up so I can listen to YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I-
Yeah.
Oh.
We're not IT people.
No, that's great.